Retro.
And welcome everybody to a comics edition of the Animanicast. And welcome everybody once again to the Animanicast. This is the podcast that, of course, is dedicated to the animated television series Animaniacs, as well as other shows in the Rugerverse, such as Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky and the Brain, and Freakazoid. And today, we are going to be talking about another Animaniacs comic book. Ooh, what a classic. Yes, today we're talking about comic issue 21 of the Animaniacs comic book. I am Joey, and joining me once again is my brother Nathan.
Caller, you're on the radio.
Hey, that is a line from the comic book. One of the many hilarious lines that you can find in issue 21 of the Animaniacs comic book, which the cover date was January of 1997, so that means this issue came out in December of 1996, because as it says on the cover, believe it or not, this is our Christmas special.
Merry Christmas, Joey.
Merry Christmas, Nathan. And we're celebrating the Christmas spirit because for the first time in how many months or slash over?
12?
At least 12.
At least 12.
At least 12 months. Nathan and I are recording in the same room.
Yeah, we both have been fully vaccinated now.
Yes.
So it's exciting.
It's exciting. It's time to celebrate with recording like normal.
I guess.
Yeah.
I might still do.
If you can call this one normal, yeah, Nathan, it still is pretty convenient just to do it from anywhere on Zoom.
Like,
I have to go to your place? No, let's just do it on Zoom. It's easy. But yes.
But in theory.
Yes. In theory. But this is, yeah, anyway. This is what the people love, is the banter between brothers right here. Yes, Nathan's here with me. Kelly can't join us because, well, it's a comic book, and
this one especially. Oh,
I wouldn't,
my
even
God.
if Kelly were available, I would not want to put her through this torture. But if you folks at home would like to go through some torture, you can find this comic book. You can find it in used comic book shops online or eBay or places like that. This has a very notorious cover. It has Wacko on the front as a supermodel. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But if you do want to go through this in a less legal way, there are several sites online that do have this comic book scanned
for basically free, other than maybe a virus or two on your computer or something.
Virus or two or three. Who knows what's being put? I mean, like we say before, we go through all this pain for you, especially not only the viruses, but for sometimes the lack of comedy, which I was really, before we get too critical or anything of this comic, I was really thinking, oh man, we just turned a corner, because issue 20
was really good. Yeah,
we really, really liked it, and we were like, oh man, this is great. So this is great.
They're finally hitting their stride.
It feels like an actual episode, and then we got to this one, which, man, it hit the brakes, and it was just
then all over the place. Well, I mean, we'll get into it, but
yeah. Okay, well, so issue 20, the cover, as we mentioned, features Wacko on the front, and
huge.
He is huge. I think this is a parody. I'm not quite sure, but it looks like a parody of a Cindy Crawford or perhaps a Kathy Ireland cover shot. It's very 90s. Wacko has
90s thing. Were any of them Miss America ever? Because it says Mess America.
Mess America. It has nothing to do with the actual story. Nothing in it has to do with...
There is someone that dresses as a woman in the store. I think that's what it is referring to, maybe?
Maybe. But anyway, Wacko's on the front looking all, in quotes, sexy.
Mm-hmm. And there are sexy women in both.
Yeah, that's true. There's that. But Yakko looks very upset. He's tapping his foot, looking at Dot, very upset about Wacko looking like this, I guess. Dot says to Yakko, hey, a Mary Kay gift certificate can only go so far. So, yeah. Again, the cover is very interesting because it has zero to do with anything that's inside.
Yeah.
And it barely even has anything to do with Christmas other than...
It says, believe it or not, it's Christmas.
Yeah, the first story right here called Radio Dazed is a Howard Stern parody, and it has...
it takes place during Christmas.
Santa is in it for a moment.
And you could tell it's Christmas in the first couple panels. There's a Christmas tree and things like that. So
yeah, so it counts. Let's go ahead and talk about the first one right here. Let's talk about Radio Dazed. And Radio Days was written by Gary Glassberg. The art was by Omar Aranda, parentheses, Soul Studio, and Scott McCrae. The lettering was done by Lorena Mappa, and it was colored by Joe Mignot. And Nathan, why don't you tell us what happens here in Radio Dazed?
All right, well, this is Howard Stern, or at least a Howard Stern lookalike, but they even call him Howie, so it must be him. He is doing his radio show, and, it's kind of a shock jock kind of thing. He's on the phone with someone telling him that, you're just so lonely, you old man, no one's going to come visit you. It turns out to be his own dad he's talking to. Ha ha. And he gets a call from Wacko, who's calling all the way from Burbank, and we see in the water towers, he's there. Yakko and Dot are both asleep while he's on the phone. They're like, hey, you're on the radio. He's like, actually, I'm right next to the radio, but whatever. So, the producer next to Howard Stern's like, hey, tell him if he gets to the show right now, he can host it or something. I don't know why. It's like a little prank they're going to do on the guy because, clearly you're in Burbank. You're not going to be able to get to New York City. In any time quick, but then, hey, wouldn't you know it, all three, Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, burst into the room and like, sorry, we had to stop by somewhere on the way. Sorry, it took so long, haha. They're on in hula skirts. They've got their surfboards. So now Wacko gets to run the show because they said he could.
Yeah, it's part of the agreement. I mean, this part really does sound like it. Okay, this does sound like an Animaniacs cartoon. The bad guy in the situation says, "Well, there's no way that this could happen," and of course it happens because they're the Warners, so they can do whatever they want. So
yeah. So then we go into just a hodgepodge of different kind of stories going along. So Wacko gets thrown into the seat to host, and Dot decides to start styling Howard Stern's hair, I guess, is going to be a thing. So Wacko is doing a fine job, I guess. I don't know, on the radio. Dot is going back, and she's going to be the news source of this. I don't know what the lady is. It's the producer.
Robin is the producer. A lot of this comic is dependent on you knowing a lot about Howard Stern.
Yeah, which I was like, I don't know what this is all about. Wacko is there's women dressed scantily as elves, and so Wacko is loving his thing. There's he starts talking to a Spock, or not Spock, but one of the Star Trek characters. Sulu, I think, is there. It's just kind of all over the place. He's bursting into people's homes that he's talking to on the phone because Bunny is calling, asking what he looks for in a woman, and he says bones are a good start, which is a great pickup line. I think no, it's not. It's terrible. This is another call from someone named Bob Cratchit, and it says his boss is a cheapskate. And we cut to, it turns out his boss is Bill Clinton.
Yeah, okay, let's slow it down just a minute here.
It's just...
Okay, because it really does get into random, jokes.
Each of these jokes, there's nothing to do with the previous joke.
Yeah, and they're not even funny. So caller on the line, it's Bob Cratchit. Says his boss is a cheapskate. And so it goes outside of the White House, and he said, no, I said he was a cheap date. Mm-hmm. And then it shows Bill Clinton in the a silhouette of him, and I guess this has to do with the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Yeah, I mean, but it's in that time, but
it doesn't make any sense. Why would Bob Cratchit Why would anybody
be
say
complaining?
Nothing was in the Monica Lewinsky scandal had anything to do with Bill Clinton
being
dating,
Bob
being
Cratchit?
cheap, and why would Bob Cratchit be concerned that he is a cheap? Again, let's just move forward.
That's a panel that should have been cut and does not like. It's not a funny cut one. I think they're like, we should do some Christmas references. So they're like Bob Cratchit.
Yeah, just put Bob Cratchit in it for no reason.
Yeah. So Dot ends up getting a bunch of luncheon meat because they were feeding them a line of bologna. So like there's like these puns that aren't funny. Wacko impersonates some sort of investigator. Callahan Fink is who he says he is.
Well, he's from the FCC, I think, isn't he?
The FCC investigator. So,
and he says, "Go ahead, make my Christmas day," because you can see that Wacko is looking like Clint Eastwood right here. He looks like Dirty Harry,
squinty eyes and everything. But he's gonna shut down the show, I guess, unless Howard Stern can do something about it. So. He's saying like, I'll change my ways. I'll be nicer to people, even Kathy Lee. So you think like maybe they're going for some sort of like Ghost of Christmas Present kind of thing or something like. But then they just cut away from that. Like, no, let's not do that. We got a phone call from someone in Hollywood, a big producer, saying they want to make Howard Stern a movie. So we just cut out what we were talking about before. We're doing a whole new storyline now. Turns out it's Wacko from behind a bookcase or something, talking into a tin can. I don't know if he says he's Plots or anyone in particular.
They mention like Thaddeus Plot. Like
he says
they call
it's
him
TP, so it must be.
And then Dot comes in saying that she's Thaddeus Plots' like hairdresser person or something like that to do Howard Stern's
hair. She did the hair
hair
on Kojak, but when she does Howard Stern's hair, they put all these light bulbs in it. And
Christmas lights.
The Christmas lights, and then it electrocutes, and then his hair ends up looking like the Bride of Frankenstein.
Coming up here, though, this is probably the best part, I think, of the entire issue.
Yeah.
If I were to pick one moment, there's the thing that says, it's the thing that you're supposed to say, don't touch that dial, or I guess that's coming up. There's a bunch of dial humor right here.
Yeah, where it's either off, or it's on FM, AM, or stereo.
Right.
The three.
So FM is like...
It's cool.
It's the Beatles, and FM stereo. It's like Wacko and Wacko both turn into kind of like a hippie / Sergeant Peppery kind of people, and says, "Do you feel the good vibrations?" Far out. AM is old people, so they both look very disturbingly old, saying, "More talk. What'd you say?" And then stereo,
they duplicate themselves.
They duplicate themselves, and so there's two Wackos and two Wackos. Which then Howard Stern chases at least one of those clones down the hall to where the point where Wacko sees the "don't touch that dial," and starts turning Howard Stern into different types of
music. Genres. So it's either off, or then it's country, punk, or classical. So if it's country, he's a cow. If it's punk, he's a punk guy. And if it's classical, he's wearing a dress. I
will say that and when they turn to classical, Howard Stern is put, like you said, into a dress, and Wacko is dressed as Liberace. Mm-hmm. And Howard Stern says, "You look like Liberace," and Wacko says, "I wish my brother Wacko was here." Meaning, this was something
went right over my head there.
Liberace used to talk about his brother George a lot, and the only reason I know that is because it's in a Spike Jonze song that they were making fun of Liberace and saying, "Oh, my brother George," and I was like, "Oh, I don't know." Apparently, Liberace talked about his brother George a lot. So anyway, he gets chased out to the top of a radio tower. He starts climbing up the radio tower.
Yeah, they're going higher and higher. It looks like it's pretty dangerous. Howard Stern has even grabbed onto Wacko's leg. He's like, "You're about to meet your maker," and then Wacko's like, "I don't think so, unless I'm a toy, because, hey, why don't you know it, behind you, we've got Santa. He's saying, ho, ho, ho," and Howard's going, whoa, whoa, whoa. And he's got a gift for Howard Stern, and it's a giant lump of coal that crushes Howard Stern. I assume he dies.
It's the largest, what does it say? The largest
lump of coal, the world of Santa. or something.
In the world, Heart Santa.
Heart Santa. Okay.
Yes, very, very small print on this, but yes, it's a boulder of coal, basically.
And that's when a talent agent comes and he's like, hey, you guys just moved to New York and you've got the biggest radio. You can do the radio show all you want. And he's like, and then Wacko's like, hey, I'm not going to leave Burbank. I could never leave my siblings. And then he says, I love you guys. And they say, hey, whoa, none of the touchy-feely stuff. You're ruining the moment. This is Yakko. And then Dot says, Merry Christmas, everyone. So we have a nice, cute ending, and Howard Stern is still dead.
Yeah, he never got up again.
Yep. So,
all right. Well, the end with that.
I don't know. You just see Santa fly off in the distance. And
so any high? I mean, you talked a lot about. Is there any of the highlight? I guess the highlight for me was both the dial humor. I thought was mildly amusing. I like the idea of the "don't touch that dial," being actually a dial, and Howard Stern tells him, "Don't touch that dial." So
yeah. It's fine. I don't know. The thing that bothered me was just how random, and the story just kept changing. Like they didn't have a goal set in mind. I think in this, where they're just like
it started getting more Christmassy. Obviously, at the end, I think Santa saving the day essentially was definitely a Christmas.
Yeah, I wonder if at one point this was not a Christmas.
Yeah,
and they like rewrote it to be a Christmas one.
Yeah, it did feel like it.
There was. I mean, there's a panel that has a Tasmanian devil and Brain in that same panel. So that's kind of cool. You get to see...
Yeah, but they're like stuffed animals or something,
Yeah, there's
right?
a stuffed animal, Tasmanian devil, and then Brain's like on a magazine or something.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, and then, you can see there's stockings ready for Santa.
There are a couple other references here, and I took some screenshots of them so I could keep them straight. At one point... Wacko looks like a weird bearded man, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your radios. You are about to be invaded by," and he just says his name.
So,
but that's an Orson Welles.
Yeah, I would just imagine
he looks like Orson Welles, fat Orson Welles,
and that's like the War of the Worlds.
Yeah, about to be invaded by. So that would be interesting to hear Wacko trying to
sound like the Brain.
Yeah, but that was pretty much the other. I mean, you mentioned Kojak, and they also talked about finding the Christmas lights behind Donnie and Marie albums. But that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, it's not good.
It's part of the problem is just like it's not funny, which is a big problem. Like you want your comic to be funny, but there's a Johnny Quest video game that came out.
Even the video game references, though, were commercials or
ads in these.
All the ads in this are not good. I mean,
there's Independence Day on VHS is coming to your home.
Yeah, exactly. Independence Day coming to VHS. A Johnny Quest CD-ROM,
which I doubt was any good.
An NBA video of the best of Michael Jordan. You can get
a box set. Oh my gosh,
$29.98 for a 3-pack VHS set.
It's probably like 20 minutes worth of videos on.
It's. I mean, that's a crazy thing when I look back at like video prices. $30 for 2.5 hours is still, I would think, a lot.
Yeah,
for stuff, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and like because the VHS tapes, they might not have been like you get 3 tapes, but it doesn't. It's 2.5 hours, like across 3. You could have put that on one tape, probably.
Oh, but the video quality would be really low.
I guess that's true.
So if you want a higher quality, you're looking at about 45 minutes to an hour per tape.
It's so dumb, though.
Well, that's why they don't have VHS tapes anymore. There's also the Dreamcast. There's an ad or not Dreamcast, Sega Saturn. Yeah.
I'm much more excited about talking about these things.
Anyway, yeah, there's much more interesting things to go. Oh, okay, I kind of remember that. But let's go and move on straight on over to the next and thankfully last story of today. It's called E.R. Emergency Roomies.
Oh, I thought it was called
An or ER, emergency room. There's just emergency roomies, was written by Gary Glassberg, and Omar Aranda was the penciler. Scott McRae was the inker. Larina Mappa was the letterer, and Dave Tanguay was the colorist. And in this Wacko has something wrong with him. Wacko says he broke his funny. And I thought he was going to say funny bone.
Yeah, it's funny bone.
But there's he says, look at him, Dot. He's all pale and pasty. I think Wacko, I can't even talk. Look at him, Dot. He's all pale and pasty. I think Wacko broke his funny. Dot replies, gee, I thought he was just being a harsh critic. So they go to the studio. They say, somebody, can you find me some sort of siren till I get him to the hospital? This is the kind of, again, humor that we're looking at.
Yeah, I didn't get this joke. It doesn't
a
make
girl
any sense.
A girl hits a beautiful blonde girl hits this front of the
What else?
truck.
It almost looks like Dot's throwing her on the truck.
It kind of does. I guess she does throw her.
Right? And then because she says, will this
siren do? And it looks like, okay, never mind. They were just hitting people on the street. So I assume that at first they hit this girl too. But yeah, you're right. Dot looks like she's throwing a blonde girl onto the hood of their truck and says, will this siren do? So
maybe there's like an actress or something named...
No, it's just like the siren, like a tempting woman or something like that.
But still, it's really bad.
So anyway, so there's two people parodied in this ER, and these were like two of the main cast members. There's Juliana Margulies and George Clooney are heavily featured in this comic.
Yeah, I didn't recognize George Clooney other than they kept calling him George Clooney, basically. But looking at the caricature, I would have never been like, oh, that's George Clooney, of course.
Yeah, exactly. The caricatures are pretty weak. But they start off and they say, okay, we got to fill out all this paperwork. And Juliana Margulies sends them to the waiting room, and you can see people like Amelia Earhart are in there, and a skeleton, and it looks like kind of Laurel and Hardy, sort of, are in there.
Oh, yeah, I would say that's Laurel and Hardy. Who's Jimmy?
There's this, I think it's supposed to be Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, maybe.
He says, wow, I think Wacko mentions, whoa, I think you need some patience to be a patient in this hospital. The Jimmy Stewart maybe character says, hanging in there, Amelia? Mm-hmm. And she says, yeah, how about you, Jimmy? I don't.
So we know his name's Jimmy, but yeah, he doesn't look like any...
Doesn't look like Jimmy Stewart to me. Anyway, the George Clooney character comes in and needs some residents to help him with somebody and to put some stitches on some patients. Dot has her needlepoint that she knows how to do that, so she figures she can help. But of course, by putting them into stitches, Wacko just makes them laugh, and they're all in pain and in bandages, and George Clooney's not happy about that.
But they are in stitches.
Yes. So, and he says, give them a sedative, and then he says, oh, I'll just show them this Kenny Rogers TV movie. Huh?
They're going to fall asleep, I bet.
I bet those Kenny Rogers TV movies might have been bad. So let's go. So it moves on. Dot and Juliana Margulies. Yeah. Dot and Juliana Margulies are going around together doing their thing. Some bad visual gags, like put them in I put this patient in a broken sling, and it's a giant slingshot.
Yeah, she's wrapping people in bandages when they just had a paper cut.
Yeah, and Wacko, meanwhile, is talking about rhinoplasty and bringing in rhinos to the surgery rooms. Let's skip forward to where Wacko is, because again, I'm going to go forward through a lot of this. It's not worth really focusing too much time on. Wacko goes to the morgue, and his whole bit throughout this whole thing is he looks really sick, really tired, and really like delusional or something. So he goes into the morgue where, there's dead bodies there with little, tags around their toes and stuff. Good evening, ladies and germs. Boy, I could use a stiff drink. What do you stiffs drink anyway? Come on, guys. I'm dying up here.
Because the corpses aren't laughing at him for some reason.
And so he says, talk about a tough room. I guess I lost my funny forever. And he has a very sad-looking shot. He's right crying. There, an angle. Yeah, I mean, they look cool. I mean, the Warners are drawn very well in all these, so that's good. Anyway, they cut to Wacko and Juliana Margulies' character. Yakko says Wacko has a case of bird brain, and it shows Tweety Bird is in Wacko's head.
There's an X-ray.
And it shows another X-ray of Wacko, and he says, "Yep, Wacko's Looney Tunes. What do you think is causing this?" And there's a Bugs Bunny inside of
his chest. Oh my gosh!
But then it turns out it's just Dot doing shadow puppets inside the X-ray machine. So they decide to go back and show Wacko's gag reflex. So Yakko hits Wacko on the knee, and Wacko's gag reflex is to shove a pie in Yakko's face. And see, the gag reflex is fine, but he's not laughing. He broke his funny. And I really don't know why they're not just saying funny bone.
Yeah,
why not just say funny bone? Anyway.
I don't know.
Cut back. So this is Yakko and Wacko doing their thing in front of a crowd. Cut to Dot.
I didn't like this scene.
Yeah, she looks a little too seductive coming into this room, saying, "You who want to play doctor?" Jumps on George Clooney and starts talking. This is where there's some stuff about.
This is the first time I was like, "Oh, this is George Clooney,"
because
up to this point,
she says,
no idea.
"You're kind of cute, Of course, you're no Mel, but you've got this adorable Bruce Wayne thing going on." And gives him a really wet, disgusting kiss on the face, and he says, "Oh, please don't do that again." Okay, cuts back to basically George Clooney starts to believe these three are certifiable. So he brings them into a room and he shows a ink blot test to Yakko.
This is your second clue. If you didn't get the first, because now you don't need a second time.
Yes, exactly.
Batman.
So now the second clue right here is that he shows him an ink blot, which obviously is a Batman ink blot.
Yeah.
It just looks like the Batman logo.
Yeah.
Says, "What do you see in this, Yakko?" And Yakko just says, "You." Dot shows him a little slip that she's wearing that has a little face of Sigmund Freud on it, and she says, "This is This is a Freudian slip."
That's good.
And he puts some electric stuff on Wacko, and then he says, "Why do you keep counting during our test, for Pete's sake?" And Wacko says, "That's right, I forgot Pete. I'm multiplying my personalities. I was never very good at math." I don't get it. Okay. It's not that funny to begin with. Okay, so anyway, they go to a giant machine. They get these orderlies.
The Steven Spielberg wing, too.
The Steven Spielberg
wing. The part that Kelly would like.
Yeah.
This one panel.
I guess. Steven Spielberg wing has a E.T. finger on it, and of course Steven Spielberg was one of the executive producers of E.R., so it would make sense to have Steven Spielberg in this.
There's a writer's... Do you know who wrote The Facts of Life? Because I couldn't find any... I mean, George Clooney was on Facts of Life, right?
Yeah, but I don't know what... They pass a solitary confinement room. There's a writer of Facts of Life inside.
Yeah, so I was like, what is the point of this?
Nothing.
So bad.
But they go to a nurse dressing machine, and they're all popping out of the different drawers. And, "Hey, Doc, over here." And I guess George Clooney either jumps in after them or falls in. And they pull a little crank, and George Clooney comes out dressed as a nurse. And Yakko says, "Hello, nurse," and gives him a kiss on the cheek. And George Clooney is now in drag, and after kissing the nurse, Yakko says, "Gyak," and all the orderlies say, "Ew." And this is what Wacko finds funny. And he says, "Now that's funny." Dot Yakko are so happy. "Yay, we did it. Our Sib's back to his normal abnormal self." And Wacko says, "That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. But if you mind, can I go back to my friends in the morgue? Those guys kill me."
The end. Yep.
So a little transphobic humor at the end.
Yeah, I'm like... But I don't even know what a nurse... So the nurse dressings machine...
It is also sexist because you're assuming that all nurses are female.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's so dumb. But I'm guessing it's just a machine that you would get your outfit from.
I guess, but it's
because then Dot changes the name of it, so it's now Nurse Dresser. So it's now a machine that dresses you as a nurse. But yeah, it's a very problematic ending. You would definitely not see that nowadays,
No.
which I guess is good because it wasn't funny, and then also it's just like it's very transphobic and sexist and just not funny.
not funny. Overall, that's the biggest issue that I have with this issue.
Yeah.
Is it's not funny. And with that, let's go and get to the Water Tower rating. Out of 5 water towers, how many would you give this issue of the Animaniacs comic, Nathan?
I'm just going to 1.
Me too.
Okay.
I'm going to 1. I don't know. You go first. What is
I don't know.
it?
It's both segments are very sexist and the second one very transphobic. They both are probably transphobic because even there's a part where Howard Stern dresses up as a woman, so I'm sure that's like a joke to.
I guess. Yeah,
I'm
more
and
concerned.
Then he dies at the end too, and it just.
I'm more concerned with the fact that it just wasn't funny.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really was not.
Yeah,
but it just wasn't enjoyable too. It was just all over the place. There's not even like a cohesive theme or anything going on for this one.
And you have to really pay attention to every panel closely to get what they're trying to find out what the joke is.
Changing the joke, yeah. They're like,
and even when you do find out what the joke is, it's not worth the search. Like I always like it in a comic book like this, where if I really pay attention, I really find all these little details.
Yeah,
like, wow, that's great.
Little jokes, and that's why I was like, oh man, that's Facts of Life comic guy. That must be.
You wasted all that time.
Yeah, I went and searching. I was like, I guess it's just because George Clooney was on Facts of Life. I
think it's just because the writer was just not a fan of Facts of Life. Which, by the time this issue came out, Facts of Life, I don't think any kids. I mean, Facts of Life got canceled in like the mid '80s or something. So how many kids were really that concerned about the Facts of Life? So bad issue.
You take the good, you take the bad,
and this is the bad one.
Don't take what's left, and there you have the Facts of Life,
or Animaniacs comic issue number 21.
But I know the theme song. That's because it was in Scrubs,
written by Alan Thicke, I think.
There we go.
I don't know. I think it was.
Song? Yeah, probably.
Alan Thicke wrote a lot of theme songs.
Mm-hmm.
I know that from Comedy Bang Bang. Well, I think before we go, we better leave on a positive note. I think we better share some feedback from our listeners. Ooh. And I say positive feedback. I mean, some of this is going to be positive, some of it's not. It's going to be dealing with the Animaniacs reboot. So
we watched that.
We did. And we asked our listeners and followers on social media to give us their thoughts about it all. And, well, they did. And we haven't been able to get to some of them. So since we have a little bit of time on this one, we might as well share some thoughts. All right, Nathan, what do you got here?
Okay, I'm pretty sure we did not read this one already.
Yeah, I think we should say, by the way, I apologize if we repeat any of these
I'm pretty
thoughts.
Sure.
Okay.
This one is new. So I'm going to read it. If it sounds familiar, you just stop me. And I'm just going to... So this one's from Rosa. And it says, until recent months, I rewatched some old Animaniacs segments and recently ended watching the first season reboot. I liked it for the most part. I just missed some of the old characters, and I hope they reappear on season 2. I liked episode 11 special because it has some old good Warner's mischief and some and it shows their flaws. I became very worried about Yakko's mental health. In some way, you emphasizes a lot with them. So empathizes. There we go. I was adding an H that wasn't there. Okay. So in some ways, you empathize a lot with them. Pinky and the Brain are not that bad. They're good. I just can't understand why they changed the intro. About the few extras, the gnome, though it's funny how it brings out the raw truth. It's not very likable watching him almost ripping out a head, though it could be worse. And things that hide in the dark is very good, like Good Idea and Bad Idea, or Time Mime. segment. I think
Mime time.
probably. Now I'm waiting to watch more and see what happens, and I hope Wacko can sing a solo or his capital song, even Yakko's interrupted song in 16th Italy. I want to know what's next. I don't know if you really read these, but thank you anyway. Hope to read you soon. So I don't know what that means.
Maybe they read us the transcript.
Do we write transcripts for each of these?
No, but maybe there's an automatic transcript.
Like if you do write a transcript, make sure you write it correctly, not how I read it.
Well, I'll go through an email that we got, and this is a longer one, but I do want to hit some of the highlights of it. And she says, "Hello, my name is Quirky Girl, and I'm a huge fan of Animaniacs (parentheses the original one), and I'm here to express my thoughts about the Animaniacs reboot, since the Animanicast will share them on their next podcast, or weeks later,
6 weeks later,
whatever." But she does say, "My opinion may be too long to read," so she gives a short summary at the end, and I'll just kind of hit the likes before I get to the summary. What she liked was the Pinky and the Brain segments, the original voice actors voicing the characters, the Warner's anime fight scene, the fluid 2D animation, and the Warner's updated designs. And then it kind of goes down to she goes into detail for specifically the things that she didn't like for the Warners and things like that. And I'll get down to the a little conclusion thing and then a short summary.
Sure.
She says, "If I were in the new Animaniacs crew right now, I would highly encourage them to rewatch the Warner segments from the original Animaniacs and watch more of the Marx Brothers films. Mm-hmm. That way they can genuinely understand what Animaniacs is supposed to be about and what it meant to Tom Ruegger and the original team. Short summary, if I could describe the Animaniacs reboot in a brief summary, I'd say it's okay, but not remarkable. I wish it could have been better, but it didn't. I honestly would like to see more Animaniacs episodes for the next 2 seasons, but what I really want to see is better. I hope that the new Animaniacs crew cleans up their acts and fix the mistakes they made in season 1. Sent from my iPhone." I always love it when the emails in like that. And anyway, thank you very much, Tuniana. That was a very, Tuniana is her email name, but Quirky Girl. I know, I gave away her identity right there.
Oh my gosh.
Quirky Girl. I'm sorry, Quirky Girl. Thank you so much for that stuff right there. What else we got, Nathan?
This one's from Jake. He says, "I didn't like it when the reboot overused the Hanna-Barbera sound effects, especially the gosh-awful whistle zip sound effect. I want to hear nothing but the classic Warner Brothers sound effects by Treg Brown and Russell Brower. Brower? Probably
yeah, Brower.
Mostly the whistle zip sound effects, as well as the Disney sound effects." So it's a nice little
interesting
thing, but yeah, very like.
But yeah, I do agree. There was and that was a criticism I heard from other people as well, that they rely too much on cartoon sound effects versus orchestra.
Yeah, actually using
in. All right, this one right here comes from Aqua Squirrel. Aqua Squirrel says, "I wish Slappy and the Good Feathers were in the reboot. They were an important part of the OG, and it would have been awesome to see them return for a new generation. They could be on the next season, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Neither are we." And he says, next, there were too many gross outs. The show was about slapstick and witty comedy, not gross outs. And the biggest problem is the character changes. Dot is now a feminist, which I think that word is kind of thrown around a little too much online as a negative, which I don't think it is. But Dot is now a feminist. How dare she?
You think women should have equal?
I know. How dare she? And not the adorable but feisty girl she once was. Yakko is no longer witty. He makes bad puns, and the brain is now more evil. Torturing Julia was out of character for him and not okay. And a few more things. There are no educational songs without a joke. And in the last episode, they can't even say a serious moment without the brain making a joke. Comedy shows can have serious moments, but there are good things. The animation, colors, and character designs are spot on. I do like how they are focusing more on the main characters. I love that there is a Pinky and the Brain segment in almost every episode. I like they're still making fun of celebrities, though it's mostly political. Although also the writers may be trying to do a slow burn relationship between Pinky and the Brain. I definitely like that. I don't know what he means by a slow burn relationship.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But anyway, they also do a pretty good job of bringing a 90s show to a new generation overall. The reboot's pretty good, in my opinion. I give it a 6 out of 10. And if you got this so far in my email, thank you so much for reading. I love your podcast, by the way. Thank you for reading. Bye.
Hopefully you got through this podcast.
Exactly. I don't know if you got through this email, Aqua Squirrel.
This one's a long one. Do you want to hear a long one from Regular Guy 16 on Discord?
Yeah, sure.
So, okay. He wanted to share some of his thoughts on Season 1 of the Animaniacs reboot. The first season of Animaniacs, to me, is a show with an identity crisis. On one hand, it presents itself as a greatest hits continuation of the show. I say this because only the two most popular segments and their characters have returned to a speaking recurring degree. The show has gone out of its way to have the returning characters be voiced by their original voice actors, an orchestral soundtrack led by Steve and Julie Bernstein, assistant composers of the original show. A few iconic moments from the old show are referenced, and there is a clear effort to at least emulate the anarchic, largely irreverent nature of the old show. However, on the other hand, there are changes. A greater emphasis is put out on gross-out humor and politics. Human designs are of a more angular and detailed nature. Characters are animated in a less loose, more locked-down manner in general. Most of the original cast is excised. Returning characters are often behave a bit differently, and there are new segments featuring different art styles. Different than those of the main segments. Something that never really happened in the old show. I think a lot of the criticism many of us have with the reboot wouldn't exist had the new Animaniacs reboot taken the approach of reboots like DuckTales, Voltron, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All of the latter reboots by completely wiping out away the continuity of the old and starting by completely scratch. Maybe have the Warner siblings, potentially played by new voice actors, not escape the tower on a permanent basis until 2020. Make Pinky more of a phone addict in a place of being a TV addict. And rework Hello Nurse into something more acceptable. However, within the context that this is a continuation of the old show, many of the changes feel awkward to me. Some of these changes to the reboot are intentional. Dot's personality has been claimed by reboot personality to be intentional, and given at least one of the reboot personnel have openly claimed that they didn't like the original show that much. It seems like some other changes might also have been intentional and designed possibly to attract people who may have not been fans of the original. However, if that is partially what they were going for with these changes, I believe the people making the changes miscalculated. I don't really know of anybody who didn't like the original show that much who loves the reboot, while there are quite a few fans of the original who aren't fans of the reboot. This is all besides the situation regarding the original writers, which has already been covered plenty on the Animanicast podcast. That's us.
Hey.
However, that doesn't mean the reboot is all bad. I feel some of the Warner segments, Fear and Laughter in the Burbank, Who Donut, and even the entirety of Good Warner's Hunting, do retain much of the spirit of the shorts from the original old shows, and can get almost as funny as those shorts from the old show. Meanwhile, Pinky and the Brain, I do believe, gets stronger set of segments overall, and with a mostly clear understanding of who the characters are and how to best create funny scenarios for them to be. In fact, I believe that the Brain's more malevolent turn, if made explicit, and the whole Julia thing could have potential in setting up a mini redemption arc for the Brain. Hopefully those Warner people are correct that the show does get better next season. Nonetheless, While there are good parts of the reboot, I can't overlook the flaws. Even if the writing improves and the animation issue gets fixed, that won't fix everything, especially since I feel that some characters, including a certain pair of squirrels, are ripe for an explosive comeback, and that won't happen unless certain people are on board. There we go. That was
Wow.
a long one.
Well, let's just go. Let's do some. I'll do some rapid fire of some short ones here to
Okay.
close things out for today. On our Instagram, we asked people, "What did you think of the reboot?" And I'll just kind of mispronounce their usernames. Giovanni Gago 353 say,
Not even trying.
Yeah, not even trying. Says good. World Mouse Brain says had some major issues with it, but it's okay. I watched it. I only watched it for Pinky and the Brain. I hated episode 8, but I loved episode 9. Yako Warner 2000 says, you see, ... and then stopped. Dragon is Drew says, I loved it. It was very fun to watch, and I'm excited for season 2. Liz Vix says, it was too gross. Adriana Waldron's RN says, it didn't get good until episode 5 or 6. Still doesn't hold a candle to the OG. Ooh. Swag Kirby Official 778. It had some rough parts, but I really liked it. Samo 1340. It's a little rough at the beginning, but it gets good. Wish there were more of the old characters or some new ones. Tiny Toon Zim Fan says, I love it apart from Starbucks and Cindy and the incredible known in people's mouths. Also, I hope they decide to bring Slappy Squirrel back for season 2 and 3.
Well, not 2, but maybe 3.
Yeah, Just Cause 889 says, I really love the reboot. Casarola says, I do prefer the original like most, but the reboot did what it was made for and introduced me and a generation of other people to a franchise. I am so grateful for it. James Michaels 30 says, I thought it was really good, but I felt like you should use more of the political humor to attack every side instead of picking sides. That's the way a show feels, less like it's forcing opinions down people's throat. As an example of instead of just attacking Trump, attack Biden too. But that's just, well, they couldn't have done that because Biden wasn't a candidate in
nobody.
2018.
Like, why are you attacking an ex-vice president?
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't have made sense. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. Slangism says, having the chance to have worked on some Animaniacs episodes. Slangism is a very good artist, by the way. I checked out his Instagram, so definitely do that. Having the chance to have worked on some of the, I believe he means original Animaniacs episodes, plus being a fan of the series even before I worked in the field, I felt it didn't let me down at all. Great reboots. It's a great reboot as far as reboots go, and I'm not a fan of the reboot era at all. And there's a few more things, but I accidentally pressed the wrong button, so I'm not going to read them. I accidentally swiped the wrong way and lost my place. But you can see the rest of those on our Instagram.
Go on our Instagram. You can add your own comment that won't be read
until like 3 or 4 or 7 weeks later. But you never know. We read as many as we can. But I think
if you say like, "Hey, this is a new one,"
we're not going to. Unfortunately, we can't read everybody's comment that's sent into us.
We'll read it ourselves, but we can't read.
We
it
will absolutely.
So if you write it, we'll read it.
We'll definitely read it. We will absolutely read it. But we can't guarantee we're going to read it on the air. But I think we can get the majority. It is a mixed bag. I mean, even the people who really liked it. Nobody, I don't think there's been anybody who really loved every single moment of it.
No, I think like even with the original show to say like that something couldn't be better, like
that's not true.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's always room for improvement on it.
Exactly. So looking forward to what happens in season 2. I mean, I'm
it'll be better than this comic that we read. So
that is very true. As long as it's better than Animaniacs issue 21, I'll be happy. Well, let's get to some contact information. Nathan, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter, Joey, JangoFT, that's me.
All right. As for the Animanicast, check out Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can go to our Discord. You can become a member of the RetroZap Discord server by going to the welcome link, which is discord.animanicast.com. You can go in there and talk to us about anything Animaniacs related, or really anything pop culture related with any of the RetroZap folks, which, because they have podcasts about everything, anything pop culture under the sun. And of course, Patreon. If you become a patron, you get extra audio from us. Exclusive audio, including commentaries from Tom Ruger.
Behind the paywall.
Yes. But this weekend is really great because we have not only commentary with Tom Ruger, but also Paul Rugg.
What?
Paul Rugg
He
jumps
does the
on.
voice of like Freakazoid.
Yeah.
And he's a writer, and he wrote some of the best episodes.
And
of
he's
Animaniacs.
absolutely he's a hilarious person as well.
Yeah, just talking to him.
Yeah, so we were very happy to have him on for a guest appearance on this week's
We should have him
Patreon.
back again sometime.
I agree. So check that out, patreon.com/Animanicast. Become a patron, get access to all the commentaries we've done so far for just a few bucks. It's pretty cool.
Wow, what a deal.
What a deal. That'll do it for today's episode of the Animanicast. So for Nathan and Kelly, who's not here, this is Joey saying good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated.